Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode. I am joined with Robert Boardman, who is going to talk about Aruba Atmosphere 2018 in Las Vegas. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing good, Roel. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's late in the evening for us, but trying to battle some of the sickness and allergies going around with the kids and the rain that we had out here.
Yeah, that rain was crazy.
Yeah, but we'll deal with it, and just now we're here going to talk about Aruba Atmosphere because this was about 2 weeks ago. I was also in Las Vegas where Aruba Atmosphere was, but I was there for CWNP.
Yes. For
the job task analysis on the design track. So that's going to come up pretty shortly on the next steps, but I think we settled upon something very good for design. There's also the AP. But
we might have to have an episode, Roel, where I get to grill you about what you did at CWNP.
Yeah, we can probably talk about that. I think there were some good things that came out, and I'm sure CWNP wants to also get that word out as well because they're starting to share some things on their end. So I think that'd be a good idea. But for this episode, we wanted to specifically talk about Aruba Atmosphere because there were a couple of good things that came out of that. Am I correct?
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting things that came out of it. It was my first year attending, so I mean, it's a very interesting conference. It's a very different conference than kind of your, run-of-the-mill giant conference. So I mean, it's definitely something I'm going to go back to year after year.
Okay, oh, that's good. And what stands out most about it?
Well, it's a very focused conference. So it's like when you get used to going to your Cisco Lives or your RSAs or your big shows, you have this breadth of information where Atmosphere is primarily wireless. There's not a whole lot of vendors. It is all about the sessions, and it is all about learning the solutions and seeing the new stuff that's coming out. And it's kind of a different approach where, like the show floor, it's like you go to other conferences and the sessions are good, but a lot of times they're recycled and they just tack on the new thing for the year. And then the show floor is where it's at. You know what I mean? Where it was more about the sessions and the keynotes, and then the show floor. I think there was a total of, outside of the Aruba stuff, and I think there was a total of 10 vendors, 12 vendors.
Yeah, that's very little.
Less than 20 vendors. I'd hate to leave anybody out, but yeah, less than 20 vendors. And it was all very focused stuff. It wasn't like, because if you've been to like an RSA conference, you'll see 17 people that do the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And where here you had like CWNP had a booth, Ekahau had a booth, Ventive and Acceltex had a booth, and then there was a couple. I think Microsoft had a booth as well, and just some very focused. It was almost as if they had a purpose there.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of repeated vendors like you said.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of difference between each one, and you can get a lot of detail into what their solutions are and how they tie into Aruba.
Yeah, and they all had like a specific thing that they tied into Aruba with. It wasn't, hi, we work with Aruba. No, it's like, we do this with Aruba.
Okay.
Outside of CWNP, but anything that has anything to do with wireless should have a CWNP booth. That's my personal opinion.
What did you think about their booth?
It was good. Sean was there. Charlotte, the new marketing person, was there. She was out handing out. They were giving away. If you guys ever get a chance to go, they give out 50% off. I think it was practice tests.
Oh, okay.
So that is that's a very good. If you ever are at a conference where CWNP is at, definitely stop by the booth. They're really nice. They'll throw out some stickers at you, which everybody loves stickers.
Yeah, they had plenty of stickers. Even at the job task analysis, the stickers were there.
Yeah, I mean, I love the stickers. But I mean, it's nice. It's there. You can talk to them. You can give your ideas. Robert Bartz was there for a while, so you can definitely have a conversation. And he was talking about,
Hey, when was he there? Because he was supposed to be at the job task
hey,
analysis.
hey, 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 how the man gets back and forth is not my concern. I just know I had a nice conversation with him while I was there at the booth.
Awesome. And so you went to some of the sessions. Which one was the one that stood out the most?
Actually, there were a couple that stood out, or three of them. In my mind, there were three that actually stood out the most. Of all of the sessions that I watched, there were three.
Okay.
So the first one would definitely be, it was by Eric Johnson. I don't know the guy personally, but he's a very smart man from what I understand. And he did a nuts and bolts, the nuts and bolts of wireless, where basically it's back to basics. And I always like to sit those classes because I always come out learning something new. You know, we all sit here and we're like, oh, we understand how wireless works until you sit some of these guys' classes. And he was getting into the mathematics and the physics, and it was a very impressive class.
Well, yeah, that's always great to have. Those are the ones where it's a great refresher, and like you said, there's always something that you'll learn something new, and maybe something you've forgotten, or there's something that a specific area that you don't touch so often, and that will just get your brains thinking again.
Or yeah, and also in the same sense where, or like you and I run into this issue, it's like a lot, and I'm sure most wireless people do. It's like, well, how does this work? And you're like, well, when you start going into too much tech talk about it, people kind of glaze over and you lose them. Where when you sit these sessions, you learn and you see how other people are teaching these things. And so you can kind of pick up and learn new ways to teach concepts that you already know. So, I mean, that's another thing that I find interesting about taking intro classes.
That's good to know. And what did you think about the overall product that Aruba has? Anything new hardware-wise that came out?
I don't know so much about hardware, but software. They announced Net Insights, and I don't know if it's 100% new. I think it comes from their acquisition. I think it was Raza. I think it was that they did a year or two ago, and so they finally have taken that and developed that into it's their machine learning AI platform, basically. So I mean, it's really neat, and it's just that they're gathering all of this data, and I think it was key.
And this is just for the wireless portion. Is this something where it grabs a lot of analytics over the wireless network to help you determine what needs to be done?
If I was explained correctly, they actually built something into the AP to actually gather this information. So it is pulled from the wireless. There is a crawler. They didn't quite go into the wired side of it. I think it's roadmap. Or if it was, they didn't really talk about it. But yeah, it's impressive the sheer amount of data that they're getting, and to the point where they're like separating people into zones, and things of how people are connecting to APs. They're doing a lot of location stuff that doesn't actually require a certain amount of APs. It's really impressive, but I don't know. I feel like it's a great foundation for something, but I don't know that it's ready
because it's like a newer platform that Aruba's coming out.
Yeah, so my mind is like, oh, you've got all this data. You can tell me all of these problems. You can show me where things are going bad. You can do this. It's like, but this is machine learning and an AI. So if I give you parameters, shouldn't you be able to fix these problems for me? If you see DHCP errors, couldn't I give you parameters built into the system that allows you to attempt to make corrections to fix those issues?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are looking for, right?
Yeah. And it's the thing is, it's like everybody's always worried about this machine learning and AI and how it's going to take our jobs. It's like, no. We're still going to have to put in the parameters in which they use to do things. So, I mean, in my mind, it is a fantastic foundation. And from what they're planning on doing to it, and there's intention to go there. The story is that they eventually want you to be able to use this to actually fix problems for you.
Yeah, and I believe it's going to be something that will give you that information to go right to the source of that problem, right? Whether that is DHCP, they will tell you, or DNS, or maybe there's client issues out there, specific types of client issues. Maybe that it can tell you that.
One of one of the interesting things they were showing, they showed, I think it was University of Washington is using it, or is a test bed for them right now, and they were showing how you were having wireless issues from something that wasn't actually an issue. So you have an AP in a classroom. You and I deal with this all the time. You have an AP in the classroom. Say you have 30, 35 students per classroom. You know, you have an AP, you know, one every 2 rooms, however you surveyed your room, but it's designed for classroom use. Generally, an Omni is used. What happens when you have the guy that's, you know what I mean, out in the courtyard outside the classroom, or the group of people using the wireless outside? And because of, you know what I mean, their lower SNR, they're slowing it down. It's wireless is working fine. It's just you're back to the 1-lane highway issue. And so they were identifying those issues and how they can use things to where they could actually block off access to that AP if you pass, kind of like geofencing in a way. But it was using SNR, not RSSI.
And wouldn't that create a poor user experience for the person using Wi-Fi? Or is that kind of a load balancing feature in your mind?
I think it was more of kind of just kind of showing the capabilities. But if you have designed that into your system and basically had you know, appropriate wireless access outside, you see what I'm saying? How you could use different types of scenarios to limit, or even not limit, but better contain your cell size. You know what I mean? Because we design these cell sizes, but RF is RF. Just because we say it should be here doesn't mean it always works that way. So it was a neat function. Like I said, it's not something that I would just say, hey, I'm going to geofence this AP. Anybody below SNR, you know, 15 can't get there.
Yeah, it's the basic functionality that they've created with Net Insight, and with future expansion and updates to it, they'll be able to reach out to different, basically add more features that will create more possibilities, maybe automatically changing certain parameters based on all the information it collects, based on where all the users are, what they're experiencing. I think that's where everyone's trying to go to right now, or that's what a lot of people like us or network administrators want this to go towards, is something that help us configure environments where there just isn't enough time, or basically faster to react to different scenarios.
Yeah, we've all had to deal with basic issues where, like, really, I could have just walked a tech through this, and then anytime it popped up again, they should have been able to do it. But we're still going out there and fixing these, I wouldn't say rudimentary, but these less than complex problems that are common problems, but that have very easy fixes, that don't need an engineer on site to diagnose and fix. And if you're gathering all this data, they were having a panel about it with the Tech Field Day guys, and I think it was either Keith or JD, one of those guys, was talking about how much data is too much data. It's almost getting too much data. To the point where you have so much data that you start getting caught down that rabbit hole of, oh, retry rates just spiked over here to a point. It's like, but is that really an issue, or is that just the fact that you just have a breadth of data?
That's probably too much data for a human to really understand, but that amount of data is probably perfect for machine learning and AI, and maybe that's when it would know how much data it really needs to make a certain decision on things. But I don't know. I mean, this is all still very new. Machine learning is a term that's been thrown out there for a while now for wireless and AI and all that. And so far, I too much to say, yeah, this is looking great. There's some good examples, but nothing that stands out to me that goes, wow, that's so amazing with what they're doing. But I think this Net Insights probably can grow into that, and based on the features that they built, right?
Yeah, they have an excellent foundation. Like I said, I don't know that it's ready for prime time, as you could say, yet, but they're getting there. And I mean, if they continue on with the path that they're going, it is going to be a force. It's some impressive stuff.
And then you mentioned Tech Field Day. What was Tech Field Day doing out there at Aruba Atmosphere?
So I guess Tech Field Day, they are also Aruba insiders. And so they got a chance, from what I gathered, they saw pretty similar sessions to what we saw as attendees. Yet they got a little more access to kind of more of the engineers behind it, some more of the probably more roadmap stuff, a little more NDA. Okay. And then they also had a panel. So basically, which I really liked. If I hope this becomes a thing at Tech Field Day events for whenever they're at conferences like the extra events, or I hope it really becomes a thing where they basically put all the panelists or all the delegates up in kind of a panel stage, and we sat down and they gave their thoughts on the topics. The big three topics again, what we were talking about, Net Insights was one of them. They did a smart things. They're talking some more IoT stuff, I think it was. Unfortunately, I missed the tech demo, which I'm very sad about. If you ever go to Atmosphere, don't miss the tech demo. It's supposed to be really awesome. And it's not recorded, which really, but I was in the middle of doing an Ekahau webinar at the time. So I was just like,
I was part of that too.
Yeah, I couldn't get away. And I was like, and because that was the reason why Keith wasn't there, is because he was doing his Tech Field Day stuff at the tech demo.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, and it was just like,
Yes, of you that don't know, Robert and I were actually part of an Ekahau webinar talking about, getting requirements.
Education.
Yeah, wireless requirements in education.
Yeah. And so it was myself, you, Mitch Dickey, and Fernay Fernay.
I thought it was a good discussion too. Kind of our own panel, I guess, outside of the Aruba Atmosphere.
Yeah, it was really good. Next time, I hope if we do another Ekahau webinar that we don't do it during the tech demo at Aruba. I'll be happy. So yeah, it was good. But the panel was really awesome, to where you had basically attendees come in. It's a session. You sit down. Tom Hollingsworth narrates the session essentially, and basically goes, "Okay, here's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about this." The delegates kind of give their thoughts on what they've seen, because they got it from a different perspective. They got not only kind of what we saw at the same time as attendees, but also engineer access and things like that they were able to talk about and speak to. And then we got to ask them questions as well. So, I mean, I thought it's recorded. You can go see it on Tech Field Day website. It was really good. Because a lot of times you don't get access to the delegates, especially in...
Yeah, that's true. That's different, because most people don't get to speak to the delegates when they are at a Tech Field Day event.
Yeah, you can ask questions through Twitter and things like that to ask the vendors, but nobody ever gets... Or it's not until they write a blog or something like that where they do some kind of content after the event that you actually get some kind of interaction. So I think it's kind of nice to talk about it while it's fresh. So roundtables, maybe it would be interesting to see like a YouTube live or some kind of a Periscope thing.
Yeah,
where after the event they do kind of a roundtable where people could join in and throw questions at it. I think that would be interesting to see.
Okay,
but that's my opinion. Don't kill me, Steven.
No, that's good. I'll definitely find the link to add notes, because I haven't seen that yet as well. But it does sound like an interesting session, because it is different for Tech Field Day to have an audience ask questions to the delegates, which I think is a great idea to speak to some of the delegates that are attending these sessions, because yes, they do have access to certain things, especially when they're at vendor offices. So it's a great way to figure out what people are really thinking on their minds, and for delegates to get out there and inform other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the other really big thing that happened at Atmosphere was that Aruba, I guess, announced their intent to buy Cape Networks.
Yeah, that's a big deal because we actually have had Cape Networks on the show previously. We have used their products. They were at Tech Field Day as well. They've presented at
You
Tech
and I were
Field Day.
delegates for that one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so we've tried out their product. It's a very simple interface to use. It does a lot of testing over wireless as a client, and they have a nice little unit that they've built on their own and have 3D printed models early on, and it's good to see that someone took notice of them and said, "Hey, we want this as part of our portfolio."
Yeah, I'm going to be interested. I'm going to have to make the assumption that it's going to be tying into their Net Insights because they're already tagging all of this information from the AP. The only thing they're missing now is the client perspective. And we talk about this time and time and time again. You always need to understand the client's view.
Right. No,
so
that's very important, especially because we do wireless for the clients.
Yep. Yeah, it's like you and I find very interesting conversations where a lot of people think, well, what was it? We talked to some people yesterday where they were like, it's about the system. It's like, no, this is wireless, guys. Yeah. It's about the client.
This is not about building a wireless system. We're actually building for the clients, but in order to really optimize and build something for the clients, you got to understand how the clients are working on your wireless network. What do they need in order to operate properly?
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting acquisition for Aruba, just because of the fact that, I mean, they already can build their own hardware and they have software guys. So I'm very interested to see what part of Cape they were interested, whether it was the hardware or their dashboard and interface and the software behind it.
It must be the way they're doing the tests, because the hardware that wouldn't seem too difficult for anyone to do.
Exactly. So like I said, I'm interested to see how Cape gets integrated into Aruba, whether it is through Net Insights or like AirWatch or something like that. I can't honestly think of any other place that they would want it other than Net Insights, because of, you know, where I'd like to think that they're going. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was a very big deal and very interesting. So yeah, I mean, congratulations to Cape on that.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. And it's been a great journey for them, because I think this was only about 5 years ago that they were really ramping this up. And it's good to see the progress they've made. And I sent even an email to David of Cape Networks, and I said, hey, congratulations on, you know, Aruba and Cape getting together here. It's going to be interesting seeing your product get integrated into Aruba Networks, because obviously that Aruba knows that a lot of this relies on client conversations, right? Like,
yes,
because there are no there's no application on these clients that tells us, hey, this is what's happening on the wireless network.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just like I find that sensors like Cape and NetBees and things of that nature, where we're getting that client perspective, are going to start becoming more and more important for us as engineers and designers and for companies, because the network's not getting simpler.
No, it's getting
more complex.
Everyone's going wireless only. Everyone wants to do everything over wireless. It's not getting any easier, and it's not getting easier to just deploy it.
Exactly. So
deploy it right.
Yeah, exactly. You can still throw an AP up and wireless is
resilient enough. And you deployed
it, yeah. but to properly deploy wireless is not getting any easier.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts on Aruba Atmosphere? It's a different conference, but different is sometimes good.
Exactly.
Is this something you highly recommend people to take a look at? Even if they aren't Aruba, they're not using Aruba, maybe it's something to go to as far as just getting information on how to learn about wireless or know what's happening in the wireless world.
I think it is. I have actually never worked with Aruba before this. And So my roles are kind of changing into the point where I need to get a little more exposure with vendors that I haven't used before. And so I thought, why not go to Aruba? I rode on the Figgis ticket to Aruba. And so, yeah. And
you took advantage.
It's a wonderful conference. I mean, it is all about learning. I mean, network opportunities are there. You meet a lot of the people, on Twitter. I met a handful of people that I have been interacting with on Twitter, or even I've met some hub holster supporters that were just in love with that there. And I was just like, it was an amazing conference to go to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's only like about 3,000 people was there, I think was the number.
Wow. Yeah. Very small group.
It's a small group of wireless people. These are people that either work with wireless in like a vendor capacity or are installing and troubleshooting and running wireless networks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very good group of people to learn from. You know what I mean? It's just meet and interact and talk wireless. Because you get to a lot of times, like you go to these bigger conferences and it always gets dragged into like switching and routing and security and voice and voice.
Yeah, you kind of have to look at everything inside of WLPC, I bet, right? Which is wireless only.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a really fun conference. So yeah, it is definitely on my yearly list of conferences to go to.
Yep. Okay.
Which I keep finding good conferences to go to, which is getting kind of scary.
There's a bunch of conferences out there.
There's a bunch of conferences out there, and this one is now on the list. So, yeah,
awesome. It's good to hear that you had a great experience and that they've managed to get you to think, hey, I need to come back again next year.
And that's the thing. It's like I'm Aruba only now. It's like that's not what it's about. It's going there to learn and to use Aruba and to see a different perspective. You know what I mean? And that's I think that we as wireless engineers need to go out there and remember that there's more than one way of doing things, and we need to see things from other people's perspectives or other vendors' perspectives, because it's wireless is a big game of it depends. There's just so many variables and so many people doing different things in some of the same ways. So it's just nice to see some of that and get exposed to it.
Cool. Well, before we end this episode, I do want to say that you and I got together to record a Wi-Fi of Everything episode with Keith Parsons and also with, the name just slipped my mind.
You're talking about Peter McKenzie?
Peter McKenzie, yes.
That's a separate episode. That we got a couple with Peter.
Yeah, we have a couple with Peter. They're not live yet. We're still working on them. But the one with Keith Parsons is already up. So I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to get to hear about what we were doing in Vegas, because all three of us were all doing something different. And then got some more insight from Keith as far as how Aruba Atmosphere was going for him as well.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a good episode.
Cool. Well, where can people find you, Robert?
In California. No, you can find me on Twitter at Rob with 2Bs _404. You can always reach me at Not So Many Fig if you want to play with and talk with Figgis. It's always entertaining. I have my blog over at rob404.com. Yeah, it's about if you can't get me there, then I'm probably unreachable.
Well, unreachable. Well, hence the 404.
There you go. Hey.
Awesome.
I'm not saying there wasn't thought put behind those 404 numbers.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode to talk about how the Aruba Atmosphere Conference went. If anybody has any questions or they have, I don't know, something to share about their experience with the Aruba Atmosphere, go ahead and leave a comment or reach us out on Twitter. But that's it, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Yep, see you guys later. Bye.